I can't maintain this. I am just too hungry and I'm going to be eating too much and I'm going to put on weight. So I just went back to doing what I'm doing. And I just went, well, if the doctor doesn't like it, I'm not concerned about it. He can't make me take the statins.
Di, how did you find carnivore?
Well, really interesting. I was being fed on my YouTube Carnivore probably 6 months before I actually looked into it. And I would put the videos on and I'd go, what's this? Oh, that's crazy. Just eating meat. And then I'd click away from the video. I thought that is like really radical stuff. But I have rheumatoid arthritis and I'm always searching for an answer. How can I get over this? How can I treat this differently? Because the drugs just aren't working. Actually, they were causing me more problems than the actual disease. So, searching again one day, and up pops a video with Michaela Peterson. Now, I used to watch Jordan Peterson, so he was sitting beside her, and I went, "Oh yeah, I'll watch this." Really not knowing too much about what it was about, but hearing her story, I just went, "I don't care how radical it is. I want that. I want remission, and I'll do anything." The problem was that I was mostly plant-based. I live on a large property and I grew all my own vegetables, fruits, nuts, because I wanted it to be organic, thinking that's going to help me. And I was thinking I would eat a little bit of chicken and fish and eggs, but primarily plants. I would go out in the morning and I'd pick my breakfast and pick my lunch and take a wander around and what's growing, what's ready today and make my dinner, little knowing that that was probably the worst thing that I could be doing. So I went, right, I am going to start this. And I had done keto before, but I think like a lot of people, you fall into that trap of, oh, this is a keto chocolate. I can have chocolate on keto. And yeah, you buy a pack of 5 and think, well, this will last me for the week. A day later, they're all gone. So I had done keto, but I wasn't on keto when I decided to go carnivore. So listening to Michaela, who was on the lion diet, I decided I would do that. I really was committed to doing the lion diet, but I can tell you, I think I had a steak probably about 10 years ago. I do not like steak. If we had a barbecue, I'd always opt for a sausage. I would not eat steak. I wasn't really one for roasts, but yeah, fish and chicken were okay, but that's not on the lion diet. So embarked on the lion diet, and 2 weeks in, I just went, I cannot do this. I cannot face another steak. I can't even stand the smell of it cooking. And then I just said, well, don't give up. Look at the carnivore diet. Look at what other people are doing. They're having eggs and fish and chicken and a bit of cream and some cheese. And I went, okay, let's go. And once I did that, there was no problem. I was hooked. But I will say I didn't give up because in that first 2 weeks, the differences I noticed were phenomenal. Um, I just, I mean, things that I didn't even really know were issues. I just thought that's life. That's how you are. I'm 64. I started it when I was 63. And I just thought, as you get older, things change, these things happen. Um, so some of the changes I noticed, the first one was that I have hay fever. So it's a year in. I started it October last year, and we're in spring, and I suffer from hay fever terribly. And I noticed that I'm not one for medication. I try to limit my medication as much as possible. So I will suffer through hay fever. and not take medication. And so mostly at night, usually around 7 o'clock. I don't know what it is, but that's when I start sneezing uncontrollably. And a week in, I sneezed and I went, I haven't sneezed for a few days. Like, I'm normally sneezing all day. And that's when I realised, like, this it must have something to do with the diet that I'm on, but how can that control hay fever? So that was one of them. The other one was that as I was, or just before I was starting, I realised I have to go to the doctors about every 12 months and have my ears syringed because I get a build-up of wax. So I put some drops in, soften it up. 3 days later, I can go and get them syringed because I just can't hear. So when I started on the Lion diet, I would wake up in the morning and go, oh, I've been lying on one side, that ear's blocked. And sometimes it would unblock during the day or it would be all day. And I'd think, oh, I'll have to make that appointment. I'll have to go and get that done. But I noticed as probably a couple of weeks in, hang on, my ears aren't blocked up anymore. When I'm waking up, even lying on one side all night, nothing's, a year later, I still haven't been to the doctor to have them done. So it's been 2 years now, and I used to do it every 12 months. And who would think that the carnivore diet would have anything to do with that? But besides that, there were a lot of other things. I noticed with the rheumatoid arthritis, I was on a drug called methotrexate, which is a chemotherapy drug. And it was affecting my system so harshly. Um, I, I used to say it felt like I was run over by a bus. My body would just ache for 48 hours. I couldn't sleep. I would sleep in probably 20 minutes and then I'd be awake for half an hour. And then I was just so tired. I would doze for 20 minutes, but in the background, I could feel that pain. And then that pain would subside after about 48 hours and then I would just sleep. I would sleep for about 24 hours. So my schedule was like, my family knew for 3 days after taking, because you take it once a week, 3 days after taking it, don't bother contacting me or expecting me to do anything. I was basically spending 3 days in bed. Then for the rest of the week, it would be like, oh, whatever you need to do, get done now. But I was still really suffering. And so about 2 weeks in, I just went, you know what? I'm not taking this anymore. I'm not doing it. So I got rid of it. And I was on, or I still am on steroids, very low dose steroids. And I managed to wean down to 0.5 milligram of steroids. I was almost off them and my shoulders flared up quite badly. So I am back on a little bit of a higher dose than that, but just maintenance. But other than that, no drugs. And the other thing that it changed was that I used to get a lot of headaches. It wasn't unusual every day to take something for a headache, some paracetamol. I think that I have taken paracetamol probably twice since I started, and that was just in the early days when I was transitioning, and it wasn't even a bad headache, but because I have previously had migraines, I'm sort of jump on it straight away. If I'm getting a headache, I need to take something so it doesn't become something really big. So they're the main changes, but that's how I found carnivore. And yeah, the just the changes have been phenomenal. Since I've been on it, I've lost. I wrote it down so that I lost 70 kilos, but I wrote it down so I can convert it. It's 154 pound. Now I must say that 10 kilos of that was prior to starting because, we all know what happened in 2020 and me staying at home all by myself with just me and my dog. rather boring and I love cooking. So, I would cook a lot of stuff thinking, I'll put it in the freezer and when this is over, no. Yeah. So I lost 10 kilos prior to starting this, but all up, I've lost from my highest weight, which was 148 kilos. That's 326 pound. I'm now down to 78 kilos, which is 171. So I still have some to go, but I won't know until I get there. So I'm thinking between 10 and 15 kilos will get me at my ideal weight. But as I keep reducing, I'll know what's the right weight. I've always gone to the gym. Um, yeah, COVID put a stop on that. Um, but it's very different now. Like rather than, I wouldn't say it was a chore. I used to like going because I used to think, well, this will stop the rheumatoid arthritis getting worse. This will maintain my movement and my mobility. And it was more for what benefits can I get out of this? Oh, yes, I will go to the gym. But now it's like, I can't wait to go. I just feel like I've heard a lot of people say this, that I need to move. I'll take the dog for a walk. I'll, I have, I never thought I'd do this in my life. I have taken up rock and roll dancing and I started that at the beginning of the year. And that's very physical. So when I first started, the teacher, I knew her, outside of just joining the class, and she knew that I had a bad back and that I've got a bad leg. I've got a very bad leg. I had an injury when I was 17, and I had 12 operations on my knee. And I just thought, let's see how we go. So I'd be in the class and I'd say, oh, I'll need to sit out a bit. I need to have a rest. And I was doing that quite frequently. And towards the end of the class, I'd say, that's me done, but I'm watching so I can learn. Now I get there and she has, if you've already done the beginner's class, you can go along to the beginner's class and then there's the intermediate class, which I'm enrolled in. Well, I get there straight away, right at the beginning of the beginner's class. I'm dancing, doing the warm up, dancing with beginners, and I do the intermediate class. So I'm dancing for about 2 to 2.5 hours non-stop. I don't need to stop, except I still have sore shoulders. And with rock and roll dancing, you're putting your arm up a lot and spinning. Um, Sometimes towards the end of the night, I'd say the last 15 minutes, I might say, shoulders are sore. I don't want an ongoing problem, so I'll stop there. But some nights, 2.5 hours, and I'm doing well over 10,000 steps on that day, 15,000 steps. And then I go out socially dancing as well. So absolutely loving it, loving that I've learnt a new skill. The other thing that it's given me, I never thought that I lacked confidence or I lacked mental clarity, but I can see the difference. So I know that I did. Um, 6 years ago, I lost my husband very suddenly and unexpectedly, and um, I was grieving for so long, and that was just before COVID, and being locked down in the house that we shared together with all the memories. When I used to go to work, it was my escape. But being locked down here and seeing everything, which I still had a lot of I still do have a lot of his things. Um, I just had to do things to get my mind off it. So I do a lot of craft. I do sewing, knitting, crocheting. And my kids would say to me, Mum, you've got that spare room and it's full of blankets you've crocheted and things that you've sewn. And I'd say, well, I'm going to start a business. I'll probably do online sales of everything that I've made. Well, that was 3 years ago. And I just couldn't bring myself to do it. I don't know why. I've been in business before, but I just couldn't do it. But once things started changing for me on COVID, on Carnivore, I just got just confidence. And I said, I can do this. So this year I have launched my business. I'm now do the markets. I'm in the process of doing my website, and I'll be doing online sales. But even getting out doing the markets, I'm doing as many as I can. I do a regular one on a all day Sunday. I do some Saturdays. I'm starting to do twilight markets for leading up to Christmas, and just meeting people, talking to them, I just have a different level of confidence and enthusiasm for life, and it, it's just really changed me. So, all these extra benefits that starting, it was about the rheumatoid arthritis. It was never for me about the weight gain. I knew I needed to lose weight, but I would say if anybody's wanting to embark on carnivore, you really need to know the why, because, days when I struggled, it was, and even just staying on it, it was never about, oh, well, I really need to lose this weight. It was, I never want to go back to being bedridden again. I never want to go back to using 2 walking sticks to just get from my bedroom to the toilet and struggling to get back to bed. And I'll say that, of course, you try to, okay, what can I get away with? The thing that I missed was flavour. I never was one for strong flavours, but I missed just having a little bit of flavour. Like if I ate eggs, an omelette, I would put a little bit of onion in it. Well, I thought I'll try that because I'm getting a little bit bored on this. So a tiny bit of onion, sliced it very, very thinly. The next day, I could feel the rheumatoid arthritis, my wrists, my hands, my shoulders. And I just went, with that little bit, that was enough to tell me this is absolutely working and there is no way I'm going backwards. So that has kept me really focused. So it was the why that was most important. And the other thing I would say is I have so much time on my hands these days. I would recommend, if you don't have a lot of things to do and you don't have a busy life, take up a hobby or do something. Engage. I even was doing an online study course because I had that much time because as I said, I was growing my own vegetables. I've stopped doing that. So that gave me a lot of time. But even for shopping, you don't need to shop as much. Cooking, simple. You're cooked and done, and especially if you're just doing one meal a day. I had so much time.
So, Di, that's amazing. Gone from 326 pounds to doing rock and roll dancing. That's awesome.
And I would never dance because 2 reasons. I still say it. I don't have a natural rhythm. I am not I mean, I dance around the house. I always have. I have music on all the time and I'm always dancing in my kitchen or, whatever so I'm walking up the hallway, I'll, dance a bit, but never in public because I just used to think, big. I don't want people looking at me. I wouldn't get up on the dance floor. But now it's like, oh, if I'm on my own, I'm looking for, is someone going to dance with me? Is someone going to come and ask me to dance? Because I can't wait to get up. And yeah, I'm loving it. Yeah.
You're still not doing red meat?
Yeah, oh, no, I am. I am. Um, I, because I never ate steak, I didn't know that much about it. Like, I am a good cook, but not in that department. And so I thought, I heard everyone talking about ribeye. That's what you've got to have, which is Scotch fillet here. So I thought, yeah, I'll get that and have it. But I didn't like it. And it was sort of like I'm forcing myself to eat it. And so then I thought, oh, I'll try rump. And I didn't like that. It wasn't until probably about 8, 9 months in, I discovered porterhouse, which is, I think it's called New York strip. Um, we call it porterhouse steak here. I didn't even know that different steaks had different flavours. To me, the steak was just a steak and it tasted awful. But I think I also, by that stage, had learnt how to cook it a little bit better. So I just have a little bit pink in the middle. I was really overcooking it and it was dry and hard to eat. Now I do cook it a bit better, but lately I have I went over to eating a lot of pork, and I would do a pork roast. I'd get a pork shoulder, pork belly, or a leg of pork. I would cook that. And because it's a decent size, I would normally invite the family, like my daughter, and she would come and bring the kids and have dinner. And then what was left over would last me for the next few days. I went to the doctor recently. Now, here's something. I have my blood tested like every 6 months as a minimum, but generally every 3 months. But I haven't been going to the doctor, so I haven't been getting my blood tested. I had it tested before, I think it was the week I started. And it, my, I don't really look at the blood tests. I look at what are my inflammatory markers. I think they call it CPR or CRP, something like that. And it was 11.6, but I was on a higher dose steroid, so that was suppressing it and keeping it down lower. When I went back after 6 months, it was 5. When I went back, it was about a month ago, it was 2.6. Nothing else had changed except my diet. My cholesterol had gone up. Now, I know that in Australia we measure cholesterol different to America. So it was sitting around 4.6, then it went up to 5.4, and the last one was 6. And he said to me, that is the borderline. You need to be on statin. And then he looked at me and he said, but I know you won't take them. And I said, you're right there. And he said, okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to measure it again. We'll do a blood test in another 10 to 12 weeks. And if it's the same or higher, you have to go on them. And I said to him, well, we'll see about that. So he said, it's only gone up since your diet. And he said to me, this is when I started losing the weight. He said, I'd lost about 20 kilos. He said to me, you've lost weight. And I said, yes. He said, how much? I said, 20 kilos. He said, okay, on the scales. So he checked it and he said, yeah, you're right. And then he said, I don't want to know what you're doing. Just keep doing it. And I thought, that's good because I don't want to tell him. But, because I thought he'll lecture me. But he said, right, if you can get this cholesterol level down with diet, then you don't need to go on them. So I went, oh, right, how can I do the carnivore low fat? So I went, right, now let's cut out these roasts because, a pork roast has crackling and that sort of stuff. And I was enjoying all that. And so I said, right, let's just make it fish and chicken and I'll even limit the eggs. Well, a week in, I didn't really think about it too much. And I just went, I'm really hungry. I cannot satisfy my hunger. And I kept it in the back of my head, eat when you're hungry, stop when you're full. But I went from 1 meal a day to 4. Now, my meals are very small. I get full very quickly. But to be eating, like I would go to bed and seriously, I woke up at 3 o'clock in the morning and I said, I can't handle this any longer. And I got up and I made myself, I think I had a medium tin of tuna, which is about 200 grams of tuna. And I just said, I have to do this because I can't sleep. And it dawned on me the next day. I said, you know what? I've cut out all the fat. I am only eating fish, and I would even get fish and I would just cook it in a little bit of butter, and that was it. And I would eat that, and that would be my meal. I just, after a week, I said, I can't maintain this. I am just too hungry and I'm going to be eating too much and I'm going to put on weight. So I just went back to doing what I'm doing. And I just went, well, if the doctor doesn't like it, I'm not concerned about it. He can't make me take the statins. He can prescribe them, and I can do with what I want with that prescription, but I won't be taking them.
Yeah, I mean, the point is as well, is like when all your other metabolic markers are
Mm.
good, then I mean, the doctors really have to consider, well, what does high cholesterol mean if suddenly every other marker of health is positive, you know? But of course they don't.
I
But
have very
yeah.
little faith in doctors. One of the main things recently, well, not recently, probably back in 2018, 2019, I have to have bone density scans because of the medication that I'm on for the rheumatoid arthritis. And they realized that after like 10 years of the medication, oh, you haven't had a bone density scan, we better do one. I think it was a miscommunication. I think that the specialist thought that my GP was doing it, and my GP thought that the specialist was doing it. But anyway, I got one done, and I was diagnosed with osteopenia, which is not osteoporosis, it's the stage before that. So I had that in the lower spine and the hips, and I would have to have the bone density scan done every 2 years. Well, we all know what happened in 2020. It didn't get done for 3.5 years. When I was diagnosed, my doctor said to me, my GP said to me, right, we need to put you on some medication so that this doesn't develop into osteoporosis. They're preventative medication, and it's an injection that you have to have every 6 months. But once you have the first one, you cannot stop, because if you stop, it will reverse very quickly. And yeah, so you need, once you have that first injection, you can't stop. He opened his drawer, and in his drawer, I saw all these glossy brochures for all different sorts of things. And he got the one out for the medication for osteopenia. And I just looked and went, like, what's this with all these glossy brochures? Is there a kickback for you? Or, are you promoting this because there's something in it? And that was the thing that put me right off. And I said, I'm not taking that. I don't need to take that. And then I said, can I address this with diet and supplements? So I was taking some supplements, but I upped the calcium, and I upped what I was having in the way of diet as far as calcium. 3.5 years later, when they did the bone density scan, she came and she said, I've got to do this again. This is going to take a little bit longer. Well, I found out why, because there was no trace of it. I have no trace at all. And I put that down to diet and not taking the medication that he was wanting to prescribe. So, and also along the way with the medication, I have allergies to lots and lots of medication. And so they had to trial so many things. And I would go to the doctor and I'd say, I'm having a reaction to this medication. And he would say, oh, okay, what's happening? Oh, if you've got a problem with the stomach and, diarrhea and that sort of thing, I'll give you some medication to combat that. And I said, so you're giving me medication to combat the side effects of medication that I'm already on. Why don't I just stop taking the medication that you gave me? But talking about medication, I would get a lot of rashes, serious rashes. That was so much so that I was hospitalised. I was pulling my skin off, basically, scratching so much that I had sores. I was doing it in my sleep. When I started on Carnivore, I started to get rashes, like really serious rashes. And I went to the doctor and said, like, look at this rash. And he said it was on my legs really bad. And he said, that looks like you've been burnt. I mean, they were so red and raw. And I said, no, I haven't been burnt. He said, oh, that must be a reaction to your medication. He said, but I can't give you advice on that because the rheumatologist has prescribed it. And it wasn't very long before I was going to see the rheumatologist. So he said, just wait and they will give you some advice. And I said, I can't handle this rash. In the meantime, in that gap between seeing my GP and the specialist, I came across a video by Sally Norton. and learnt about oxalates. And man, did I delve into that. I was watching videos for days. The main thing that I used to eat was spinach, silver beet, kale, because that grew prolifically. Summer, winter, spring, didn't matter the season. And that would be the basis. I would wilt down spinach and put poached eggs on it for breakfast. This is before carnivore. I would eat everything with spinach. I would make stir fries, soups, but spinach, silver beet, whatever would be the basis of a lot of my meals. I also grew a lot of rhubarb, and I loved that, thinking, this is healthy, this is organic. I would cook that, put a bit of sugar in it, and I'd have that with some yogurt. But they're the worst things. I didn't realise I was oxalate dumping. Now, that started right at the beginning of carnivore, so that was October last year. It didn't let up until May this year. That's how long it took. I had rashes on my arms, on the backs of my hands, on my legs, everywhere. But once I learnt about it, I said, this is just a matter of putting up with it. I've got so much oxalate in my body, but it's not infinite. It will rectify itself when it's all gone. And that explained also the itchy eyes. I was forever rubbing my eyes and couldn't work out. And I learned that it also comes out there as well. So, yeah, that rectified. And in May, it really subsided. And I just looked down and I went, I've got no more bumps. Now, here's another thing. Last year, I was going to my GP because I had a lot of, you can see the backs of my hands, I'll show you. I had a lot of sunspots. Sometimes they're called liver spots, very dark and all over the backs of my hands. And I also had other spots, and the doctor said that they were precancerous because I have had a basal cell carcinoma removed from my nose. So he was right onto it, that anything else that was appearing on my body could develop. And so he said, right, we need to remove these. So I would go and he would freeze them off. I had a standing appointment every Friday that I would go to the GP, and he would burn off about 20. So they're on my arms, on my hands. He would check the ones from the previous week and say, oh, you should have formed a scab there. You haven't. We'll have to hit that one again. Well, when I started carnivore, I was still doing that. But in December, I just went, you know what, I'm not going back. And because he has all of January off. So I was supposed to resume in February. Over January, I noticed the spots on the backs of my hands are disappearing. And I just never went back. And so I don't have any of those spots. I don't have to have them frozen off every week like I was having. So I don't know whether it was unnecessary treatment or not, but I do know that I had very dark, well, they look like dark freckles. I've got, I don't know, maybe one or two, but they've gone. So I thank Carnivore for that. Yeah.
That's awesome. So at this stage, you're only taking that steroid for your
Yeah, my
shoulder. Is
shoulders
that it?
got so bad because I went so low. I couldn't even, and my hands were bad too, but it was mainly my shoulders. I couldn't open the car door because of the shoulders. I couldn't lift my arms. I was struggling to dress myself. Yeah, but I just got sick of the restrictions, and I said, because I'm doing the markets and I'm having to lift. I'm lifting a portable gazebo and tables, like they're 6 foot long plastic tables, but they're heavy. Um, I had to have somebody come and help me set up, and then they would have to come back and help me break down. And I just went, I can't be doing this forever. So I just went, I'm going back onto the steroids. And yeah, but I am weaning down off them without an issue at the moment. Sorry, besides that, I do still take supplements. So I do take
Okay.
a lot of supplements. I know that they say that we get it from our food, but I think the osteopenia sort of has scared me that if I go off that, will that come back? But magnesium, I've always needed that for cramps, but I take zinc. Now, I don't know if you can notice, but I lost a lot of hair. And I don't blame Carnivore because I looked right into it and they say that any major weight loss, even people who have surgery for weight loss, it's a big change to your body and you will lose a lot of hair. But I looked into that because I did develop some bald spots. And I just went, oh, I've got to address this somehow. So I started to take a B complex. Then I started taking biotin just recently. But I think the major difference for me was taking an iodine supplement. So I take that every day. And I noticed that within a week of taking that, the hair loss slowed. I wouldn't say I could notice any regrowth, not in a week, but I can notice regrowth now. It's probably some areas are about not quite a centimetre long, but yeah, I am getting my hair back, and I notice I've got product on it now, but all these little bits of fuzzy hair will show through. So I'm really happy that that's reversing and I'm getting my hair back. But I take the supplements. I stopped taking vitamin C um, after watching Sally's video because, yeah, and I stopped taking the turmeric. Turmeric is supposed to be an anti-inflammatory, or curcumin, or I think that's how you say it. But I stopped taking that's plant-based. So I mainly take like zinc, magnesium, calcium. I take vitamin D supplement.
Nice. And so are you back to one meal a day now?
At the moment, I'm on two. I am thrown a little because I mind my grandchildren 2 days a week. And my daughter is actually a dietitian. And but she's lovely. She just says, you do what you do. She said, I'm not your dietitian. I don't need to give you advice. The only thing she says is, she said, but I do have concerns when people give up a whole food group. And she said, that's all I've got to say on it. But because she's a dietitian, she's very much on children, young children, developing their eating habits from when they're born. So one's a 2-year-old and one's a 5-year-old. So it's like she did say to me, do you, when they sit and eat, do you eat with them? Because that's very important to eat together with young children. So I eat lunch with them, but I prefer to eat in the evening. Later in the day, if I do one meal a day, it's around 2 or 3 o'clock. So I eat with them at 12, and then by about 7 or 8, I feel that I'm hungry again. So I'll have another meal. And I seem to go, okay, when they're not here, I'll get into that one meal a day, but it's really thrown into chaos. Some days I do, some days I don't. But when they're here, no, I eat the 2 meals a day. Another interesting thing about eating with people, over Christmas, my son lives in Newcastle, 3 hours away. So he came and stayed for the week. And so my daughters who live locally they were all, my house is set up to have my whole family sleep over. I've got all the bedrooms, because I'm still in the house where we all live together, so big house. All the bedrooms are set up for the kids with cots and beds, and then I've got the larger beds for everyone to sleep over. So for a week, they were all here. And I was a bit concerned because they're like, oh, Mum, you're on a crazy diet. Don't do this. And I thought, oh, for a whole week, I'm going to have them saying, you're not eating. So I thought, how can I do this and also not be tempted to steer off course, because I know how it would affect me. So I planned it and I went, right, I know that some of these things are probably not the best thing to have, but they're not completely off the track. So I got in lots of cheeses, salamis, And I would put that on a platter, but I'd put with cracker biscuits and with olives and all the other things that they would have. But I would sit there and I would snack. And Christmas, we have a leg of ham. So I would slice the ham and put that on the platter as well. So I would grab a plate and I would load it up with ham, salami, cheese. We'd be sitting around, snacking a lot of the time. But even when it came to meals, I would stick to the ham and the cheese, and I'd put boiled eggs out as well. And I'd grab some boiled eggs. And so that would be my meal when everyone was sitting having a proper meal. They'd have their salads and their veggies and all their condiments. Um, do you know, I could not believe it. Between Christmas and New Year, I lost 5 kilos. 5 kilos at Christmas. Who does that? And I just, yeah. So now I know that it doesn't matter the situation. I even took a trip to a rock and roll festival. So they were in a festival in South Australia. Now, for those who aren't from Australia, to drive to South, we had to drive because we had all the band equipment. So to drive to South Australia, the first day we were in the vehicle for 8 hours, and our stop off, partway stop off, we slept overnight, and then we got back in the vehicle 11 hours the next day to get to our destination. Now I thought, how am I going to cope with this? So we got a little porta fridge and we plugged it into the 12-volt in the car, and I stacked it full of meat. And there was enough meat there to last for 3 days. And then I realised, because we had other band members in the vehicle, so there were 4 of us, and then we had another vehicle. So there were 6 of us stopping to have a break. And I would say, don't pull into the service station and get meat pies and sausage rolls. I've got meat in the back, and let's just stop and we'll get some bread rolls. And I picked up some veggies, so I picked up some onion and some tomato and some mushrooms, things that I wouldn't have. We'd stop on the side, really nice scenic places. We stopped by lakes, we stopped in lovely places, and I had taken my butane cooker, my little portable cooker, and a really large fry pan, and I would cook for everyone. And they'd say, oh, this is the best band trip we've been on, none of this rubbish food. So they were making themselves, buns with, steak and onion and whatever they wanted, and we'd fry up some eggs as well. I would just have the meat and the eggs. And I stayed on carnivore diet for, it was just over a week of travel. So we travelled all the way there. We were there for 2 nights, and then we had to travel back. So the whole trip, I stayed on the carnivore diet without any issues. But the band, they said, you've got to come on our trips in future because we've never been fed this well. And they loved it. So when we got to our destination, stocked up again on it. But yeah, I didn't have to deviate. I didn't feel that I was missing out on anything. And they kept complimenting me. And I'd say, I'll cook. And they'd say, one night, I had some cream. I took cream and I had made some scrambled eggs. But we were trying to use up what we had because it was the end of the trip. And I said, oh, right, I've got this cream here. I put that in the pan with the meat juices and a bit of butter and juiced it right down, and it started to brown off. It was really nice. And I said, here is some sauce for your meat. And that cinched it. They said, you are definitely coming on our next trip. So it was a rock and roll festival and got to do rock and roll dancing. So.
Nice. Do you ever get any of these friends saying to you, how come you don't eat the bread?
I had one, but I just said, oh, I just prefer this. I don't talk too much about the carnivore diet because when people would ask me in the early stages, I just had so many people talking me down and telling me that you're going to get sick, that's not sustainable, you might be losing weight. And I said to him, it's not about the weight, it's about the rheumatoid arthritis. And look at me, I don't have walking sticks anymore. Look at the things I'm doing. Why would I go back? But I've now learnt I don't say carnivore. When people notice that I've lost weight, I say I'm on an elimination diet for rheumatoid arthritis. If they want to delve deeper, if they say, I'm interested, could you tell me? And then I say, well, you know, some people think it's a radical diet. This is what I've done. And um, some people have actually said, I'd like to know more. But I have one of my friends who is in the band, has type 2 diabetes, is on Ozempic when he can get it, other than he's injecting insulin, and he does have a lot of weight to lose. And he has seen me drop the weight and encourage me, very encouraging the whole way. And I will never tell anybody what they should do. It's their own choice. But I did say to him, if you ever want to know more about this, I need to tell you that perhaps you could be off your meds and you could control your diabetes. It's type 2 diabetes that he has. Perhaps it could make a difference to you. If you ever want to investigate it, just ask me. And that's all I've said. And he said, so what is it? And I said, you need to just have meat and there are other things you can have. And he said, no tomato sauce, no barbecue sauce, no onions with your meat. And I said, no. And he said, no, I couldn't do that. And I said, well, you know what? Sometimes when your health gets to a point where you've got no option, you're looking for options, you might want to look at this. And I'm here if you want to ask me. And I said, and if you don't want to ask me, go on YouTube. And I tell so many people to go on your channel because I will say um, it is difficult. It is difficult to keep focused. Every single day it was, what's Dave put up today? What videos are available? What can I look at? Every night as I would go to bed, that would be the last thing I would do. I would watch one of your videos because just seeing other people's motivation, and I know you kept putting the call out saying, you don't need to be at the end of your journey. And I thought, but what if I stumble and I put the weight back on, or if something happens, I couldn't go until I couldn't contact you until I was almost at my goal. But all the people you've had on, I've got to say a big thank you for people sharing their story because it's just the motivation that I needed. And I tell other people, if you want to go on it and you want motivation, watch these testimonials that you hear because there's no way you deviate when you hear all the great things that people have achieved.
Yeah, it helps me as well.
A big thank you, a really big thank you for what you do.
How can people reach out to you? Do you have a YouTube channel or any
I
social
do. I have
media?
two YouTube channels. One One used to be called Di's Home and Garden, and I used to show all my cooking, all the beautiful cakes and pastries, and I have now changed that. It is now called Miss Mary Designs, which is the name of my business, and it has more of a business focus. And I've started a carnivore channel, so I've only got one video up now, and it's called My New Life on Carnivore. So that's where people can check it. And so what I have done right from before I started on the carnivore diet, I started recording so that I could start a YouTube channel every single week. So there's the first one is me sitting and just talking about, I'm going to go on this diet. I don't know how I'm going to go. How can I just eat steak when I never have before? So that was the first video. And then every single week I have weighed myself. I've made notes. I've recorded everything I've eaten since 7th of October last year. I make notes. And so I talk about what's happened this week, what obstacles have I had to overcome, how's it going, how much weight have I lost. I take pictures. So I take pictures like from all different angles. So I've got all those photos, and the first video shows the first photo, and it shows the most recent photo of me just in my gym gear. So I'm wearing like the tight gym pants and just a singlet top. And yeah, I've got loose skin. I'll never show that. But you can see it on my arms and on my neck. But I will say that I have noticed over the last, I'd say, 2 to 3 months, that it is tightening a little bit, very, very slowly. The neck is, because I take a side shot purposely to show my skin on my neck. And I can see that it is improving. So I still do my videos every week. And so I'm doing when I'm going to be putting my videos up, where I'm at now. And let's take a look at a year ago where I was and what obstacles I encountered. That way, people will see, what did I do over Christmas? What did I do at Easter? What did I do because I was traveling?
That's awesome. So I'll link to the channels below. Thank you so much for coming on today, Di, and sharing your story. I really appreciate your
Look, if this
time.
can inspire anyone or motivate anyone, that's the aim. That's why I came on, because everyone who has been on has helped me. So let's keep it going.